Trump resorts to desperate measures after failing to protect Arab allies? Not attacks. Now Trump risks Mojtaba's wrath with this new stunning decision to move against Iran's frozen assets. Trump mulls stealing Iran's frozen fortune to rebuild battered Gulf under pressure from allies and escalating war costs. Mojtaba's $24 billion to go to Arabs for war reconstruction as frozen funds become a central flashpoint? As ceasefire hangs by a thread, Trump's new gambit to shatter truce pushes region closer to collapse? Iran's latest missile attacks on Kuwait and Bahrain have pushed the United States toward considering new financial and diplomatic options, according to a source cited by Reuters. A source told Reuters that the U.S. was examining ways to potentially use Iranian assets to help rebuild Gulf allies affected by ongoing or future regional strikes. The proposal could involve using frozen Iranian funds to cover damage costs linked to recent and possible future attacks across the Gulf region. According to the source, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has ordered a review of the estimated damage costs across affected Gulf states. U.S. officials were also assessing whether Iranian assets could be redirected to support immediate reconstruction and repair efforts in the region. The source did not specify whether the review was limited strictly to frozen Iranian assets held under current sanctions frameworks. The disclosure came a day after fresh attacks in the Gulf tested an already fragile ceasefire and heightened regional tensions. CNN reported that Iranian advisor Mohsen Rezaei linked any potential progress in peace talks to the release of around $24 billion in Iranian assets. Rezaei said future diplomatic progress would depend on Washington agreeing to unfreeze or release Iranian financial resources. The reported U.S. approach could complicate ongoing negotiations, which are already facing multiple political and strategic obstacles. Any move to seize or redirect Iranian funds is likely to further strain the fragile ceasefire and slow diplomatic momentum. Fresh details are emerging about a reported strike on Al Udeid airbase in Qatar. Defense Security Asia claimed Iranian missiles hit the U.S. Combined Air Operations Center. The attack reportedly took place during the opening phase of the 2026 U.S. Iran war. The strike is being described as exposing growing vulnerabilities in America's forward command and control architecture. Al Udeid airbase in Qatar is widely seen as a key U.S. command hub in the Gulf. Even one of the most heavily protected operational headquarters reportedly could not fully shield itself. Defense Security Asia reported, and I quote, "According to details confirmed by senior American officials, multiple Iranian missiles directly struck the CAOC complex at Al Udeid airbase in Qatar, rendering the facility completely unusable despite its hardened construction and extensive fiber-optic command infrastructure. The operational consequences could have been strategically catastrophic because the CAOC had directed coalition air operations across the Middle East for more than 2 decades, including campaigns spanning Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, the Red Sea, and anti-Houthi operations. No American or coalition personnel were injured during the strike because U.S. planners had already anticipated the likelihood of Iranian missile attacks against Al Udeid and relocated operational personnel before the conflict escalated into open regional warfare. The Pentagon had quietly transferred critical air campaign coordination functions to Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina, where a parallel CAOC architecture had already been expanded and exercised as part of long-term contingency planning. The successful transition of command authority from Qatar to the continental United States demonstrated the Pentagon's increasing reliance on distributed command and control structures, designed to preserve operational continuity during high-intensity missile conflicts. The strike also reinforced growing Pentagon concerns that 4 deployed American military hubs within approximately 175 miles of Iran now operate permanently inside Tehran's expanding ballistic missile engagement envelope. Unquote. Notably, the hardened CAOC complex reportedly cost about $60 million to build. The reported Iranian strike showed how relatively inexpensive ballistic missile salvos can threaten such facilities. Iran's IRGC has claimed responsibility for the latest attacks on Kuwait and Bahrain. The IRGC said it targeted U.S. military bases in the 2 Gulf states, according to Times of Israel. Iran said the attack was retaliation for U.S. strikes on its radar sites earlier in the night. IRGC statement said, and I quote, "At 1:30 this morning, for offending tankers, with the instigation and guidance of the U.S. aggressor army, without coordination and without paying attention to the warnings of the IRGC Navy, intended to leave the Strait of Hormuz illegally. Following this incident, at 2 o'clock, American drones hit a telecommunications tower in Keshem and a mast in Sirik with 2 projectiles. In response to the aggression of the American child-killing army, 2 American airbases in Kuwait named Ali al-Salem and the remaining important facilities of the 5th Fleet of the American Navy in Bahrain were immediately targeted by IRGC Aerospace Force ballistic missiles. We warn the aggressor and child-killer enemy that if these evils are repeated, a limited response will not suffice. You will be responsible for the consequences of the complete closure of the Strait of Hormuz on the exit of your oil and gas." Unquote. Meanwhile, the U.S. military appears to be trying to contain the fallout, saying Iran launched 7 ballistic missiles. U.S. officials said the missiles were fired toward Kuwait and Bahrain, according to Times of Israel. The missiles were launched hours after the U.S. said it had thwarted 4 Iranian one-way attack drones. U.S. Central Command statement said, and I quote, U.S. forces intercepted multiple Iranian ballistic missiles and drones launched by Iran toward the Strait of Hormuz and Gulf neighbors, June 5. Iran fired 7 ballistic missiles toward Kuwait and Bahrain hours after U.S. Central Command CENTCOM shot down 4 Iranian one-way attack drones that were launched toward the Strait of Hormuz. The attack drones posed an immediate threat to regional maritime traffic. U.S. forces subsequently struck Iranian coastal surveillance radar sites in Gorak and on Keshem Island to defend against further maritime attacks. Initial assessments indicate 6 of the missiles launched by Iran were intercepted and a 7th did not reach its intended target. There are currently no reports of harm to U.S. personnel, and Iranian claims of damaging U.S. 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain are false. CENTCOM forces remain vigilant and postured to continue responding to unwarranted Iranian aggression in self-defense. Unquote. Iran claimed its navy forced multiple U.S. warships to withdraw from the Sea of Oman during an incident on June 5 amid heightened regional tensions. Iran's army said warning shots involving Qadir missiles and newly unveiled Shahed Dana drones were fired during the operation in the Sea of Oman. Tehran claimed the warning action targeted U.S. destroyers DDG-103 and DDG-8, which it said were operating near Iranian waters at the time. Iranian Navy said, and I quote, "After warning shots by the Qadir missile and the new Shahed Dana invading drones of the Islamic Republic of Iran's Navy, the transgressor destroyers DDG-103 and DDG-8 left the Sea of Oman toward the Indian Ocean." Following this operation and similar operations in recent days, in addition to the Zionist American enemy destroyers operating under the USS George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group, the Tripoli amphibious assault helicopter carrier has also been compelled to leave the Sea of Oman. Unquote. Tehran described the reported withdrawal as part of its broader campaign against what it called U.S. maritime activities in nearby waters. The Iranian Navy warned that longer-range missile systems could be employed in future if regional tensions continue to escalate. Iranian officials said the U.S. vessels had moved beyond the operational range of the weapons reportedly used during the warning action. The claims came after several days of heightened military tensions across the Gulf region and the strategic Sea of Oman. Tehran said its armed forces would not tolerate what it described as foreign military pressure within its maritime zones. U.S. officials have not publicly confirmed Iran's claims regarding the reported movements of the destroyers or other vessels. Iran's IRGC has claimed responsibility for the latest attacks on Kuwait and Bahrain. The IRGC said it targeted U.S. military bases in the 2 Gulf states, according to Times of Israel. Iran said the attack was retaliation for U.S. strikes on its radar sites earlier in the night. IRGC statement said, and I quote, "At 1:30 this morning, for offending tankers, with the instigation and guidance of the U.S. aggressor army, without coordination and without paying attention to the warnings of the IRGC Navy, intended to leave the Strait of Hormuz illegally." Following this incident, at 2 o'clock, American drones hit a telecommunications tower in Keshem and a mast in Sirik with 2 projectiles. In response to the aggression of the American child-killing army, 2 American airbases in Kuwait named Ali al-Salem, and the remaining important facilities of the 5th Fleet of the American Navy in Bahrain were immediately targeted by IRGC Aerospace Force ballistic missiles. We warn the aggressor and child killer enemy that if these evils are repeated, a limited response will not suffice. You will be responsible for the consequences of the complete closure of the Strait of Hormuz on the exit of your oil and gas. Unquote.